So now we hand over to our next outstanding speaker, Mr. Nick Vermont. Nick.
Thank you, Zoe. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here with you in Edinburgh. As Zoe said, the title of my presentation today is Do Healthy, Sustainable Products Mean Healthy Sales? And I think health and sustainability have been two of the key consumer drivers in the food industry in the last 10 years. But I think, what do we mean by health? What do we mean by sustainability? I think for me, certainly sustainability has both an environmental and agronomic element, but also, and critically, an economic element. And I think it's key to consider in considering sustainability and also health. Eating nothing isn't very healthy, and not having demand for a product isn't very economically sustainable either. And I think we need to bear those things in mind as we go through the presentation. So, first of all, let's have a look what's been going on in the potato market globally over the past 10 years or so. The red line there shows the index of world potato production. So over a 10-year period, we've seen nearly a 4% increase. Over that time, frozen, pre-prepared potato products have seen nearly a 14% increase. Now, some of that is fueled by growth in the developing world, but it also shows that frozen prepared convenience products have found the solution set against those consumer pressures over the last 10 years of both health and sustainability. What I'm going to do is talk through what we at McCain Group have done over that period, by particular reference to a case study here in GB, and then I'll talk a little more about how that's now rolling out globally, and hopefully pull the thing together towards the end of the presentation. As many of you know, McCain is a privately owned Canadian company. We've been operating for around 55 years, and McCain is the largest purchaser and processor of potatoes in the world. Some 1 in 3 of every French fry served in the world is made by McCain. And our success, as we've moved from Canada to GB to Europe and then throughout the world, has been driven single-mindedly by focusing on the caterer and the consumer and delivering innovative new products that meet those needs. Whether it be our first product, McCain 3/8 in the left in the food service industry, moving through to the launch of ovenable chips, super fries in Australia and Canada, we call them oven chips here in England, onto microchips, and then on as we've continued to evolve and respond to the changing consumer needs. And I think, as Ronnie said in his presentation, understanding the consumer, understanding the caterer is absolutely critical to success. But you don't go and ask a consumer, do you want an oven chip? Do you want an iPad? Do you want an iPhone? The real skill is listening to consumers, listening to the conversation, looking for the unmet needs, and then identifying solutions that have a sustainable business model that will meet that unmet consumer need. Obesity, and again, Ronnie mentioned it, and the speaker before the break was certainly talking about it. Over the last 10 years, obesity has become a huge global issue for the food industry, as some of the more lurid headlines on the chart go to show. And, as Ronnie said, I think, over the last 10 years, consumers have been absolutely bombarded with all sorts of messages. Many foods, they're both 1 minute good for you, and then the next thing they're bad for you, and consumers are completely confused. But as we know, often with media and journalism, bad news makes a good story. And regrettably, too often, potato and fries have become the poster child for the health and obesity scaremongering. Today, this is right up to date. This is a Newsweek headline from May 2012, Today, as we were hearing earlier, you know, the battleground, the eye of the storm is over North America. But what I'd like to do is talk about what happened here in GB when the eye of the storm was right over GB. During 2005, we had a number of food scares based on ingredients, Sudan 1, Para Red, a huge issue, required hundreds and hundreds of products to be withdrawn from supermarket shelves. And at the same time, celebrity chef Jamie Oliver sat there on a bench in the picture, launched a program called Jamie's TV Dinners, which was a big expose on the appalling state of the nutritional value of what was being fed to children here in Britain during schools. That sequence of events took health and obesity from very much a government, an NGO, a foodie debate, straight into the mass market. The Jamie Oliver series prompted headlines across all of the tabloid newspapers. And regrettably, again, it was potato and fries that took an unfair brunt of those headlines. I think interestingly is the one on the right, Dead at 20, the boy who only ate chips and toast. He'd actually eat other things. He drank fizzy drinks, baked beans and chocolate. But interestingly, it was the chips that were held and pulled out as the reason for his death. And similarly, we saw lurid headlines almost on a daily basis. Obviously, McCain, here in GB, we're very much focused on the potato business. It would represent some 90% of our revenue. During the course of 2005, we started to see a stalling in our markets. But the tipping point for us came in January and February 2006, where we saw massive volume declines immediately post the Christmas of 2005. Here in Britain, often there's lots of diet and sort of healthy eating activity immediately post the excesses of the Christmas holiday, and as people start thinking about their summer vacations. And we saw something like a 20% drop in penetration, that is the number of households buying our product category throughout the month of January. And obviously that started to have a significant impact on our profit. So we needed to act, and we needed to act very quickly. So what we did was to totally immerse ourselves in the consumer, to really try and understand what had been going on. Up until that time, a lot of the focus had been about fat and saturated fat, and that was where we first went to look. But by taking all of our top senior commercial management in the entire marketing team, taking them off their day job and doing about what would normally take 10 months in terms of market research activity, and we concertinaed that into a 6-week period, we got to find out more about what consumers were thinking, what was making them tip than ever before. And what we discovered was it wasn't actually about fat, it wasn't about saturated fat, it wasn't about calories. It was about processed food. And the whole health and obesity debate, the huge number of product withdrawals from supermarkets caused by the Sudan 1 and Para Red ingredient scare had totally shattered the consumer confidence in any pre-prepared foods. And they weren't very, it was widespread. There was no choice. All processed food was bad food. And what had happened, as Maury mentioned, the huge emotional connection that most people in Britain have with a potato, and it's true in many other parts of the world. It is a hugely rich emotional territory that many brands and many other product categories would actually kill for. And what we'd done, we'd allowed the factory, we'd allowed the process to get in the way, and we'd lost in the consumer's mind that connection between our products, of which there's only 2 ingredients, potatoes and oil, to get in the way. So, what were we going to do about it? because you've seen the kind of headlines we were suffering at the time, and literally it was daily, whether it be TV, radio, press, everywhere. So we decided to go on the front foot. And as a result of this huge consumer immersion in understanding exactly what was going on in the mind, we came up with this proposition that basically at McCain, we're a good company. You know, we've been around for nearly 50 years. We try to operate in a sustainable way. We grow our potatoes well. We operate our factories well. We're a family company. We look after our people. We've built up some fantastic relationships with our business partners. And we make good food. There's absolutely nothing to be ashamed of with our food. And they are fantastic, wholesome ingredients. And above all, remember what I said right at the start about sustainable demand. People love potato. They loved French fries and chips. And it makes them feel good. Not just because they taste great, but emotionally, there's a huge wealth of richness there. So we decided to go on the front foot. Our advertising agency produced this iconic image on the right there, and as I say, a picture tells 1,000 words. And our simple proposition was as follows. You know, we simply peel, cut, lightly prepare in sunflower oil and freeze. That's it, 2 ingredients. And consumers had lost that. Ronnie mentioned it in his presentation, the kids not realizing you know, French fries came from potatoes. Well, I can also tell you at that time we did a survey amongst chefs and cooks in the catering industry, and there was a frighteningly large number there didn't realise that French fries came from fresh potatoes. So we had a huge education job to do, but basically we had a very simple food and simply prepared, essentially as you would prepare at home. We were then going to go on a major communication campaign, but in the light of the media and the paranoia there was at the time, we needed to make sure that we had cleaned house. One of the biggest changes we made was our McCain oven chips, which was one of our most famous products, had been prepared in sunflower oil, which is low in saturates, since the mid-80s. But we took the decision to change all of our products to being prepared in sunflower oil. That reduced our saturated fat by some 70% and gave us a fantastic platform to go forward. Now, sunflower oil, we can argue whether it's the healthiest oil or not, but more importantly, for consumers in GB, thanks to the edible oils and fats industry, sunflower oil was seen as by far and away the healthiest oil, which was one of the reasons why we chose to use it. Whilst in most of our potato products we don't have any added salt, those that we do, we reduced our salt. And we had a complete cleanse of all of our ingredients. Over time, we've discovered we'd added various processing aids and other things that made life a little easier, maybe a little cheaper, but fundamentally, in terms of cleaning our ingredient decks, we took them all out. And the basic premise was, where we can, we will, and our ingredient decks will only contain things that you would normally find in a kitchen cupboard, i.e. things that a consumer could understand and readily identify with. So over a period of the following 3 months, we removed 31 ingredients, rewrote 300 specifications in advance of our communications package. And that communications package was a complete 360-degree impact. Every single person that had any touch point with the company or the brand was communicated to multiple times in multiple media. The first place to go was to the government, to the non-governmental organisations, the pressure groups and the media. Because when we stuck our head above the parapet from a communication perspective, we wanted to make sure we had taken our story and our position across all of the influencers in the country. Having done that, we then started with a PR campaign and then started to use a wide plethora of media. And we were very single-minded. Very simple proposition, simple ingredients, simply prepared. In fact, our most famous product, McCain oven chips, 2 ingredients, potatoes and sunflower oil. So this was our first foray into digital marketing as well, and I shall come on to talk about that a little more later on. In-store labelling. At the time in the UK, front of pack nutritional labelling had just been introduced. There was a wide-ranging debate going on between those who believed a traffic light system was the right way to go, those who believed guideline daily amounts was the way to go. And again, the two sides have become so entrenched in their positions that they had lost sight of what the consumer actually wanted. Each system had about 40% support amongst the consumer base. We actually went to the consumers and said, well, what if we did both? And not surprisingly, we got our approval ratings up to about 80%. So that's what we did. We were the first major food brand to use both guideline daily amounts and traffic lights on our packaging, and it was a huge talking point when we did it, because guess what? Virtually all of our McCain products at the time had 3 greens and 1 orange on the traffic light system, and our Rustics oven chip, when we launched that, was the first frozen potato product with 4 green traffic lights, and that was a major plank on which we got everybody in the debate, whether that be consumers or health or food journalists, to re-evaluate our category. And that was effectively what we were getting to do. Consumers loved French fries, chips. They loved eating them. The people who they were serving to loved them as well. But it had become dangerous. It was not safe to be seen eating chips. I said we saw that huge drop-off in sales and penetration just following the Christmas period, and in that intense period of research, we actually found that we had child pester power in reverse. The Jamie Oliver programme had been focused on schools, and we found that children were coming home from school, having had conversations about food, and were telling their parents what they should and should be serving. So it was a massive re-evaluation job we needed to do. And again, similar to Ronnie, one of the biggest weapons we've used in our brand building over the 40-odd years we've been operating the retail market here in GB was TV. So having done all the groundwork with the PR and some of the other media form, in September 2006 we launched an advert called Sunflower Park, which I'll show you in a minute. And this was to be a massive celebration of chips and all that was good about chips. And basically our objective here was to make it okay to eat chips again. Make it acceptable to serve chips when your kids brought their friends home for tea. Make it okay to order French fries when you went out to a restaurant, because believe me, around that time it was beginning to become unacceptable. So, simple proposition, 2 ingredients and just 5% fat.
Chips, glorious chips. Just how do they do it?
Smart sunflower oil, there's nothing else to it. These beauties are washed and peeled, yes, and then we chop them. We splash them with sunflower oil, then you munch them.
So, what did all of that do for us? First of all, that was one of the most successful adverts we've ever made, not only in terms of the sales impact, but also in terms of awards we won, not just creatively, but for advertising effectiveness. And within just 2 years of that advert airing, our markets had not only got back into growth, but were already bigger than they had at the low point in 2006. And thankfully, the McCain growth was 2.5 times that of the overall market. We'd brought 3 million new users to the McCain brand, not just got older users back, we'd brought new users to the brand, and all of our brand tracking scores saw massive increases. I think in terms of winning the fundamental argument, many of the government departments, the Food Standards Agency, many journalists who had seen potatoes and chips as part of the problem, we started to be seen as part of the solution. And that has continued to this day, and we are a key partner with many of these people in taking the debate forward. And thankfully, and I guess if it hadn't, I wouldn't have been here, our profitability was regained and we've managed to move on from strength there. I think the beauty of the campaign and the simple proposition is such that, we're a good company using good ingredients, simply prepared to make good food that makes people feel good. That is a great basic proposition that we've managed to evolve and move on. And it comes to the second part of the title of the presentation. Because no sooner had we started to get the ship onto a level keel, that around 2007, you may recall, certainly here in GB, the whole issue of sustainability, how green were your products, what was your carbon footprint, so on and so forth, started to become very much front and centre. And we did a number of things at that time. They say sometimes in business you have to be lucky as well as being good. Lots of things came to play. At the time, we'd just installed the 3 largest land-based wind turbines at our factory near Peterborough, and that moved us into a position of 70% self-sufficiency for our electricity. We'd just introduced double-deck trailers for shipping all of our finished product, which had a significant reduction in our road miles and therefore CO2. And a whole host of other things started to come along. But also in terms of the food debate, road miles for food, provenance, quality of the food also became a critical issue. And it was at that stage, our business here in GB has always been predominantly supplied by British potatoes, but we made the decision to move to 100% guaranteed supply of British potatoes for all of our chip products. And I can remember back in the early 70s when there were lots of Buy British campaigns that were driven by patriotism and jingoism. That's not what's been driving it now, but again, and it comes back to being in touch with the consumers, understanding what they're saying. And British potatoes, whether it's true or not, British potatoes were viewed by British consumers as being better quality, grown more carefully, obviously having less road miles, and that was another critical contributory factor to changing people's image of the brand and of our products. Following our success here in GB, and given the early signs that the global health and obesity debate was going to spread to other parts of the world, many of the initiatives we undertook here have now been conducted globally. Over the course of the world, within the McCain world, in all of our major developed markets, we've switched to healthier oils. In certain markets, that required getting rid of hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated oils to remove trans fats. And everywhere, we've seen a significant reduction in saturated fat levels. Again, in many parts of the world, Potato products have a lot of added salt to meet local requirements, but there again, we have an ongoing program to start ramping that down. And again, the whole philosophy of simple ingredients, simply prepared, has been expanded globally. And It's All Good has become our global company philosophy and our kind of strategic compass, and has prompted a whole host of new product innovations around the world, both in our food service sectors and also in the retail businesses. And again, these have all been driven by understanding in specific sectors, in specific regions, exactly what is the consumer concern, exactly what is stopping the consumption of more potatoes, and finding innovative solutions. Whether that be non-fried products to meet stringent requirements in schools in either the United States or here in GB. If it's providing new ways to serve potatoes, overcoming cooking difficulties or increasing lack of ability and skills and confidence of growing potatoes, of serving potatoes in the home. All of these things have driven, spurned ideas and provided opportunities for more innovation and more growth. Most recently, and coming back to home, here in GB, in January of this year, we launched McCain ready-baked jacket potatoes. Now, as a nation here in Great Britain, we love our jacket potatoes. You heard Ronnie say it was his favourite version of potato. Some 300,000 tonnes of fresh potatoes are sold for this category in Britain every year, and I think it could be an awful lot more, but one of the problems is to get a decent potato out of a conventional oven takes a good hour, maybe an hour and 20 minutes if it's a larger potato. If you stick one in the microwave, yes, it may be quick, 5 or 10 minutes, but it doesn't have any flavour, doesn't have any aroma, and it's a rather limp, unappetizing thing. We have managed to develop a baking and freezing technology that captures all the flavour and the wonderful evocative aroma of a freshly baked jacket. And it's available from the freezer and the microwave in just 5 minutes. So that's been an incredibly successful launch for us. In 6 months, we've already sold over 20 million potatoes, and we estimate our sales in the first year will be well in excess of 12,000 tonnes. So I think I can answer very emphatically that healthy, sustainable products do mean healthy sales. Frankly, given the strength of those trends of health and economic and environmental sustainability, I don't think any product that doesn't tick those particular boxes is going to meet with the consumer acceptance around the world. And I think in terms of the key learnings for that to take through is it's absolutely critical to be in tune with consumers' conversation. And don't forget the catering market as well. Whilst they may be the same consumers, there's a very important step in the process, which is the chef and the restaurant operator. And it's all about having the confidence in your product to dispel the myths, embed the facts, be absolutely authentic about what it is you're selling, what it is you're doing, because in today's media, with the digital world, Facebook, whatever, you will be found out if you tell an untruth or try and bend the rules. And when listening and when speaking to consumers and caterers, listen for the opportunities that will create those new products and that innovation that will drive the business forward. And above all, it's actions that speak louder than words in this debate today. The media are still incredibly cynical, and it's very easy to stand up at lecterns like this or make press releases, but it's what you actually do that is going to make the difference and that will build the trust in your brand or your product category. And like Ronnie, I believe there's massive, massive opportunity still for us all in the potato industry, whichever sector and whichever region you're in. So good luck, and thank you very much.
Nick, thank you very much. An absolutely excellent example of how healthy, sustainable choices can drive profitable sales, but not without significant change and then outstanding communications to your customers. Two wonderful speakers. Thank you very much, Ronnie. Thank you very much, Nick. I believe it's lunchtime now, downstairs in the, where you had coffee anyway. So thank you very much. We'll see you this afternoon. Bye-bye.